China's alliance with Saudi Arabia signals a potential shift in the global order. Chinese President Xi Jinping and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the de facto leader of Saudi Arabia, participated in a major meeting Friday, signaling increasingly close ties between the nations as U.S. relations with both nations grow increasingly chilly. One significant result of the summit, which focused on trade agreements concerning oil, technology, infrastructure, and security, was an agreement that the two nations would not interfere with each other's domestic affairs. Alleged human rights violations have been a serious pressure point in the once-strong U.S.-Saudi alliance, while criticism of China's treatment of pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong and Muslim minorities in the Xinjiang region have rankled the economic superpower. The China-Saudi relationship isn't new, but Friday's summit outlined the terms of the two countries' cooperation and heralds a shift in the global geopolitical order, away from the U.S. The U.S.-Saudi alliance, which has endured through 7 Saudi monarchs and 15 presidents, has taken a blow under U.S. President Joe Biden, who vowed during his campaign in 2019 to make the oil-rich Gulf nation a pariah for directing the murder of Saudi dissident journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018 and the kingdom's role in the punishing Yemeni civil war. The tension has continued, most notably over Saudi oil production as sanctions on Russian energy help drive up fuel prices around the world. The Crown Prince, who is commonly known by the acronym MBS, has met with Xi before, most recently at the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing. Though it might seem an odd pairing, the two nations actually have quite a bit in common, including autocratic leadership, serious repression of dissent, a clear need to diversify in order to maintain economic growth, and ambitious infrastructure projects. China is Saudi Arabia's largest trading partner, with Chinese exports to the kingdom reaching $30.3 billion in 2021 and Saudi exports totaling $57 billion in the same year, according to Reuters. Saudi oil makes up 18% of Beijing's total crude oil imports, worth about $55.5 billion between January and October of this year. Saudi Arabia, meanwhile, has great ambitions to diversify its economy, which has for decades relied on crude oil output. But in order to do that, it needs money, oil money. That's at least part of why Saudi Arabia limited production in the midst of a global oil crisis and prices for crude oil remain high. Both nations also tout ambitious infrastructure projects. The Belt and Road Initiative, China's effort to create a 21st-century Silk Road international trade route by providing the finances to develop series of ports, pipelines, railroads, bridges, and other trade infrastructure to nations across Asia and Africa, is a milestone effort for Xi. It's also received major criticism for potentially exploiting poor nations by essentially loaning them money they can't pay back, in some cases granting China control over these critical hubs. Xi's presence in Saudi Arabia, both with MBS and as part of a larger summit with Arab and Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC and nations, present multiple opportunities to strengthen ties with a host of nations in the region, and to make sure that in the global great power competition, those nations are, at least, not aligned with the U.S., as Shannon Teetsey wrote in The Diplomat Wednesday. Critically, Saudi Arabia knows it cannot depend on generous U.S. weapons sales under Biden, so China is an increasingly viable alternative. In fact, Reuters reported, Riyadh is thought to have signed $30 billion in defense contracts at this summit with China.